Welcome, everyone. I just wanted to let you know we'll be starting in just a moment. We're letting some people hop on. So just a second, we'll be right with you. Hi, Jack.
For a second, and then I'm out.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay.
The computer decided to do an update. So apologies for the late entrance.
Go ahead, Jack.
Perfect, everybody. Welcome. We have about half the people that signed up so far.
Hi, Dean.
We'll still be getting on. So I don't know if we want to go ahead and get started and go from there. Jack and Dean, are you guys ready?
Yeah, Sarah, did you put my presentation up on the system?
I can.
Thank you. So while she's doing that, let me just encourage everyone to ask questions. I'm going to go through the printed version of the Blue Book. We're going to talk about a whole lot of aspects of it, and so I'm going to try and demonstrate to you the value of it. I'm going to talk about how to present it to the customer, the benefits of what's inside of it, and also just talk about the differences between this, the National Job Rate Price Guide, the Blue Book, and charging by the job or hourly time and material. So that's what the presentation is based on. And I would argue that the Job Rate Price Guide is based on job costs as it relates to individual jobs, not, it's not a one size fits all. And that's where a lot of people get caught up, is they think it's a one size fits all, and it's not. And so I've got several examples in the presentation as to why the book is of great value. By the way, the book's available two ways. You can get the book through UASA's website, and with that, you'll get a discount. And if you want the online version, if you go to appliancebluebook.com, Jack can walk you through that. You can also sign up that way. There is a presentation at 2:30 today that talks about the benefits of the online version. This is going to be specifically about the printed book. That's what this conversation will be about today. And then at 2:30, as I said, Jack will pick up and handle the online version. So the beauty, this is all we ever had, was the paper version of the Blue Book. And it's what, I think a lot of people feel more comfortable with, technicians and also customers. Although today's digital age, that is changing, it's changing rapidly. But the reason why a lot of people prefer this is they can touch and feel it. Whereas the internet feels like when it's digital, it can be changed, altered. It doesn't feel like it's as legitimate as something that people can touch and feel. So there is a benefit to that. What I would tell you is that the best way to present this, and Sarah, whenever you can put the presentation up, I'm ready for you. The benefit to this is being able to open the page up to the particular job rate and hand it to the customer, pointing your finger to where the job is listed with the price listed on it. And that is an amazingly effective tool in helping customers not just see, but actually own. It takes a lot of pressure off of the service technician who is doing a price presentation when they are showing a customer a particular job in the book. So don't take that as powerful. One of the benefits that you'll see compared to the online version is that can be co-branded, whereas this is, you're not on here anywhere, you're a company. So it's more giving you that national flavor, whereas the online version gives you co-branding. It talks about regional with the job rate price guide and your company, and it has a little place for you to put your logo and a little slogan. This one doesn't give you that opportunity. So a couple things about the book. In the beginning of it, we've written a very detailed bit about how to use it, the benefits of using it, and you can go through and should read all those pages. What I found is the biggest issue is people don't understand it, so they don't utilize it. And even people that have bought the book or signed, engage it in their companies, value that they offer. So I do want to talk a little bit about value, but in that beginning, as I described, it really gives a pretty decent, simple explanation behind the job rate itself, the price components, and how each job rate has three distinct components involved with it: the service charge, labor, and the parts. These printed books, when Service Company Solutions produces printed books, we always go out and pull current parts pricing so that when you buy a book, if it's 2 years old, it's probably outdated just from a parts pricing standpoint. One of the benefits of the online version, it's its current pricing. It pulls that day's price on individual parts. That's not the case here. The online version is totally customizable. This is not. This is the national job rate as it goes from national standards. So, but the prices are updated about every time we do 30 or so books, which is probably less than a month's time, you're getting updated prices. But as I said, if your book is 2 years old, your prices are out of date. And some of these, because the prices are so volatile on parts, you will see a little slogan that says CFPP, call for part price, because the part is changes so dramatically. A lot of that has to do with boards, and so you won't catch the part. So, but you do have the labor component and the service charge component to be able to build a flat rate, a job rate off of it. There's also a markup for parts pricing in here that gives you a scale. So it's scalable. You can do that in real time as you're presenting the price to a customer. Sarah, ready? Any luck?
Yep. It's up. It's ready. It's just waiting for you. You ready?
Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. So blah, blah, blah. This is me, and this is what I want to talk to you about. I did think that the primary issue is the AK time and material, which, by the way, when you hear the term flat rate, which is what I used to use as a term, but the problem is when I would talk to people and they would tell me what they meant by flat rate, it really boiled down to they were just using flat rate as another name for time and material. So I think it was Jack actually is the one that suggested that we go to job rate because it was way more specific to what we're doing. And it's, as I described before, it's the flexibility of pricing based on real cost averages for individual jobs, including your liability exposure, which is very real and something that I think we need to talk about, and most people don't. So here's what I'll give you just quickly. One of the big problems with time and material is it creates clock watchers, and I don't know a single technician that enjoys somebody that's monitoring them by a watch. Where, I saw when you came in at 9:07 and he left at 9:22. It's a 15-minute job, blah, blah, blah. That creates pressure on everybody. The customers, they don't like it. Technicians certainly don't like it. The CSR is trying to explain that, and management has to justify it. it's not good for anybody. So hourly rates can generate a higher degree of recall because you're going to have a conscientious technician who is very time sensitive that is trying to get out faster than they may just because they've already quoted the price. They don't want to run the bill up on the customer because they've been told it's, you know, whatever your hourly rate is. And here you are, you're 5 or 8 or 10 or 20 minutes over. Oh my gosh, I got to go. So all of those, I think, are legitimate reasons, but I'll get back to that in a minute. I found this study very interesting. I know you can't see the small print at the bottom from where I found this, but there was a clear understanding that professional service delivery was inconclusive. So you see the slide, it says there's not a clear understanding, so I just turned that around. All of this study, there's no standard for what professional service delivery should actually look like. So what happens is individuals in each profession identify with other members in their profession. And what we often do is we gather around people like us so that our idea of the value of our profession is usually diminished because we don't compare it to the large group averages. And then what happens in that regard is then we get an image in our mind about our clients because we are gearing our company up that would attract a specific type of client. So it becomes this catch-22. It's a revolving door. So if you think about that, and I can go more into that, I won't because that's not the reason for this job, but I did think it was worth looking at. Obviously, I found this funny picture. I'd had this up from many years ago. I went and patched this presentation together. I hope that's not you in delivering a product or taking a product to the shop and then you're re-delivering it. I thought this was a riot. 3 guys to remount an air conditioner. I don't know how up off the ground he is, but terrifying nevertheless, should never be us. So customers want a value, and that's something that the Blue Book offers. It offers a value to the customer. And you say, well, how, Dean? Well, specifically because it's in print. It's not you jotting stuff down on the back of an invoice to come up with a part price. You can, or your total price. You're giving them something specific to look at, to hold, to touch, and there's a real value in that. So I just thought it was worth looking at the definition of value. If you were using as a noun, it says regard that something is held to deserve the importance or worth or usefulness of something. And if you were using as a verb, it's estimates the monetary value of something. And here's the problem. Most service professionals that I've dealt with, talked to, engaged with, believe that value means cheap. And that is just not true. And I've had countless discussions, blog sites, online, in person, in the classroom, in front of people, trying to knock out this perception that value means cheap. It does not. And go and look, check me, and go to any survey you want. Value does not mean cheap by any stretch of the imagination. So the problem's in our head. And here's a little saying, and you've seen it before. Value is seldom cheap, and cheap is seldom a value. And think about your own experience on products that you would buy that are in the lower echelon. It typically doesn't give you the same life experience, and it's across the board. Pick out whatever it is that you want and look at the value that you're getting from that thing. I think about Vitamix. There's now a Japanese product that's come through that's a competitor, Vitamix. I have a buddy that works there, and he talks about the component quality. And I've actually looked at the differences between those two products. It's dramatic in what one is cheap, and it is cheap. It does grind up some vegetables and gives you a smoothie drink. But the other one, when you look at the components and the long last effect of those components, it's dramatic. So that's just a quick little example using a different product than what we're used to. But I hope you can think about that. So this is my value circle or ultimate satisfaction circle. Value includes being prompt, be polite, be personal, be professional. And here's one of the big differences between us and everybody else that I want you to think about. It is always something that we have as an advantage of being personal. People want to do business with someone that they know. So, and I call it the stickiness. That's what we can offer that other people can't. You can be polite, be prompt, certainly do that. But the personal aspect is the big differentiation maker, in that we, as small business owners, as smaller companies, as owner operators, we have the ability to be personal. And that should translate into being honest, transparent, and reliable. So I hope you get all that. Creating or focusing on the personal experience with the customer and your interaction with them does these 4 things. Deep satisfaction, gives you a repeat customer, makes them an evangelist. So now you have a marketer out there who's talking about the quality of your company without you having to have done anything other than provided an excellent service customer product, which is a real value to the customer. And it's a real value to you, your company, your employees across the board. So don't miss that. By the way, I know I'm going quick through these because this is what I wanted to get to. If you have a question, please feel free to stop me and ask the question. I'm happy to answer it. I will leave time at the end, but if something comes up, Sarah or Jack will interrupt me and make sure I answer your question. So 3 primary ways of charging, as I mentioned: time and material, hourly, and then this flat rate, which I'm saying is the same thing, because some people say, well, we have a 30-minute tiered rating for a job. The problem is, when I've dug down into it, most of their jobs are rated at 30 minutes. And what happens if a job is rated at 35 minutes? Does it get to be a 30-minute job? Do you re-quote it? No, they don't. So it really becomes a time and material job. And most time and materials aren't really quoted at time and material because they're quoted up front. Because when you do a job for a customer, you're telling them, well, Ms. Jones, this job takes this amount of time. Well, now Mrs. Jones is expecting that that's how much she's going to pay because you've quoted her that. Why wouldn't she, right? So that's problematic, particularly when not every job goes that way. And what happens if the job is less? What happens if it's 10 minutes less? Are you discounting it? What happens if it's 10 minutes more? Are you charging more? Probably not. And you can't discount it because of the averages. And that's the problem with the time and material model. And I'll go into a little more of the specifics with it as we go. So here's 6 questions that I think are legitimate. And I'm just going to ask the questions and then we'll go through the answers. Do you think customers prefer someone with experience or without experience? So obviously you think about that. Do all technicians operate and conduct themselves at the same speed, or are they slower or faster? Who earns more money? Is it a long-term tenured employee or somebody that's just starting out in the industry? What about a 30-year employee? What about things that just occur? You have predictable and unpredictable circumstances. What about kits? What about a particular brand refrigerator that has an ice maker repair kit that now the fix suggestions looks like a small book that you now have to do about 33 things. And I don't know what the number is, I'm making it up, but you get the point. That is unpredictable. And your recall rate's going to be higher than it would be on something else. How do you account for that? And are you better than the average technician that works, or I should frame this a different way. Is your company better than any of the multinational or national organizations that provide service in the appliance world? Just think about that. Do you particularly or any of your technicians like having a customer stand over the shoulder or click a stopwatch when they start doing the repair? And so let me just speak to those. Here's my answers. As soon as I can get the PowerPoint to click over. There we go. No, nobody minds paying for experience. Customers prefer experience. They don't want inexperience in any way, shape, or form. They will pay for experience. Think about your own world view. What is it that you like when somebody's fixing your car? Do you want to see a 17-year-old underneath the hood of your car? Do you, when you have your roof done or you have a carpentry job or whatever, do you want to see somebody with a little gray hair? My suspicion is you do. Are techs faster or slower? Certainly. You can have people that have been in the industry for 30 years. You could have 15 of them, and are they all going to work at the same speed? Certainly not. Certainly not. I have technicians. One's been here 34 years, one 32. The 32-year guy is probably 50% faster than the other guy. And you can say, well, he's slowing down. No, he's always been fast. Certainly he's slowing down as he get older. We all do. And I could show you studies on that too, where they've tested people in various jobs. And as we get older, we definitely slow down. So, but we're paying experienced people more money, even though now they're slower. So think about that as it relates to time and material. If you have time and material and you're charging customers now, and I'll get to this, you actually have to charge less for the more experienced person that is paid more, because it takes them less time to fix it when you charge time and material, which becomes insane. Obviously, senior technicians are the highest income earners you have. And I just say they spend a far less amount of time doing the repair. And you see, I've written ouch, because that is direct to your pocket. And there's no justification. You can't argue with me about how that's going to look from a customer standpoint. There's no justification for it when you only charge time and material. So that's why I think a lot of people have gone to what they term flat rate, because that lets them wiggle out around it for jobs that are where they're sending out senior and less experienced technicians. They now have this flat rate, but they're basing it still on time and time only. And that's problematic because it doesn't cover liability. And the liability is a big deal. I already mentioned predictable and unpredictable. I mean, they happen, and there's no way for you to justify it. So, for instance, right now, there are some brands that may be having a problem with, I mentioned refrigerators before. What about brands that are having some problems with their dishwashers or their washing machines or a particular washing machine? How are you covering that with straight time and material? You can't. And you actually don't even know when you're going to have this unpredictable, because it's unpredictable. And I have these whole slides that talk about the variety of unpredictable things that can occur as well as predictable. We won't talk about that. And so this idea of comparing yourself to a national company, I've not had a single person that I've ever worked with that when we go through this full list of comparative quality issues that they'd ever said to me, no, the national companies are better than me. So uniformed, yes. Letter trucks, yes. Inventory, yes. Speed of service normally favors us. Quality of personal connection favors us. Getting the owner on the phone favors us. Personalized service always favors us. I use the term sterilized service when I'm referencing multinationals or nationals because they can't do what we do. So we're better, and we're the type of companies that people want to do business with. So when you look at that, and then I say to companies, well, who charges more? And the vast majority of particularly small companies, they say, well, they do. I'm saying, well, you just argued with me that you're better than them, and yet you charge less than them. Why would you do that? And then lastly, who likes a clock watcher when they're completing a repair? And I've not met anyone that loves to have people stand over their shoulder and click a stopwatch when they come in. And it's not uncommon if you've told them it's time and material, and that's what you're charging for. So the flat rate is a wiggle room way to get around it, but it still doesn't account for those other factors that I've listed already. So think about that while you're making your pricing. So benefits of a job rate compared to time and material. It takes the guesswork out of it. You don't have to even worry about it. It's in the book. It's listed in the book. When you have a book, it creates confidence on the technician's standpoint. It's bad when the technician feels very uncomfortable because our technicians typically don't think of themselves as salespeople, but they do have to present a price. And that puts them in a position of being a salesperson to sell the repair. Unfortunately, they don't like to use that term. So the book creates this tech confidence because they can point the customer to the page in the book, hand the customer the book, which is what I always recommend. Obviously, it also communicates a professionalism. So it enhances your image, your company's image, and obviously brings up your reputation because customers see that you're using a nationalized standard for the prices. And it defers price shopping. So customer service reps, when they are actually able to reference, and they all should at the point of taking a service call, well, Mrs. Jones, all of our job rates come out of the National Job Rate Price Guide, the blue book in the industry. So once the technician has diagnosed the problem, he will reference the book and give you a completed repair price. That is powerful for the customer service reps to be able to say that. And I know it's a mouthful, and it's one of the reasons why I don't think any business owner that is a owner-operator should answer the phone themselves, because you're usually in a hurry to get off the phone. You may be behind a refrigerator, under a dryer, making a repair, and you don't want to have to stop and say all that. You need somebody to answer your phone that is trained in going through that terminology of giving them the full orbed perspective of what you're going to do when you come there, and using a job rate and not an hourly or a flat rate. And so, interestingly, the other thing it does is it drops customers' complaints because they're not watching the clock. This is a job rate, and it's based on that job. And there's not a justification that you have to offer relative to time, because so many other factors go into it that we've already talked about. So the bottom line benefit is technicians can now go and relax. They can take their time. It helps them not get caught up into recalls because they've been able to understand that slow and fast has been accounted for in these prices. And what that does for the business owner and everybody involved, which everybody should be involved in making sure that the company's profitable. Why? I've had conversations with many business owners too that don't like to hear the term profitability, which is bizarre to me, because they're in business to make money, and that requires profitability. Profitability is not a dirty word. It's not something we should shrink away from or hide from with our customers. You need to be profitable because it's what allows you to stay in business. And customers that don't understand that, frankly, in my opinion, you don't want as a customer. They have to understand that value costs. And for you to be able to stay in business and offer the value, your stickiness that you offer, requires you to be profitable. You can't work for wages because there's so many other factors that go into you being able to offer what you offer to a customer in terms of the full value. So, sorry, there we go. Here's a little thing that I've used for years, and I like this comparison. So here's our technician on the right, mom and daughter on the left. They love one another. They hang out all the time. They both went out shopping one day and bought a matching set of washer and dryer. And so one day the daughter called you and you sent out, they had a dryer problem, and you sent out your best technician. Now, they live relatively close. They talk all the time. Your best technician in a time and material situation was able to fix the support package very, very quickly, came out of the house, charged her $180. And then the mom called a couple weeks later, got the reference from the daughter. Of course, why wouldn't she? Had the exact same problem with the same exact model machine, same exact model, okay? You send out Johnny Greenback, an experienced technician. It takes him twice as long. He charges mom $245. Legitimate across the board as you go by your hourly charges. Nothing wrong with that. Everything. However, what you've just done in the daughter's eyes and in the mom's eyes when they compare pricing and what was done is that you ripped mom off. And there's no wiggle room around that. So if you say, well, the technician I sent to you was more experienced. Well, then why wouldn't you send him out to mom? Why would you send out an inexperienced technician? I only want the experienced technician. So you're on the hook. You're going to have to refund that money and rethink your whole process because it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. Hourly does not hold up under scrutiny. So I mentioned this before. Customers prefer experience. Certainly, there's a good example of it. Experienced techs are paid more. They're usually faster at diagnosing. Certainly, they may not be as fast as fixing, but they're certainly going to be faster at diagnosing. They know tricks and gimmicks that an inexperienced person's not going to have. And that's one of the things, and I use the junior-senior comparison about how you charge. So I hope you can see time and material penalizes experience. I don't want to instruct the customers to click the stopwatch and start to watch what's going on. I don't want them to have to worry about their checkbook. It's all been quoted up front. We're going to stand on that price. And it lets everybody in the company, I mentioned this before, customers, technicians, CSRs, and management relax. That's all the benefits of charging a job rate. And I mentioned the recalls. It can generate higher recalls, particularly if somebody conscientious who's trying to hurry and doesn't want to charge more. Particularly if management's like, hey, Johnny technician, you were out there 45 minutes. You only charged for 30. Why? Or you were out there an hour and 10 minutes. So if management's squeezing their technical staff because they're not charging the way they're structured to charge, you can create all this unnecessary tension by virtue of how you, company owner, choose to structure your company and its charging. Now, I don't think it's wise. So my encouragement to you is go a different direction. So let me give you some comparisons on this. Liabilities. Not all appliances have the same degree of liability. Would you agree? I'm assuming you're all raising your hand. And is one brand of the same exact appliance, for instance, a refrigerator, got the same liability as another brand of a refrigerator? No, these products are different. Well, how do you cover those additional costs? Are you covering them in your hourly wage? How? If you've got a 30-minute, particularly if you're using flat rate, not job rate, flat rate, it's a huge disadvantage to charge that. Now, I'll give you some experience here. There's a comparison. Whirlpool dryer support package, I mentioned it before in the mom and daughter comparison, versus a refrigerator start kit. So which has a greater amount of liability? We're going to assume that these repairs take about the same amount of time to do as what the other does. So let's just say 30 minutes. Argue with me if you want, but let's use 30 minutes and settle on that. But what has the greater liability of these two? So I have had actually one person over the years argue with me about the dryer support package. I still think they're on crack because there's just no way. I do think I had them at some level changing their mind by the end of it when we went through these things. And so look at it. What about recalls? You have a start kit. Could the compressor be defective? Certainly. You've pulled the product out. Did it have a water line on it? Probably. Could it have been damaged? Certainly. What about damage that a leak could cause? And by the way, if you have a plastic supply line coming to that refrigerator, you need to replace that, not push that refrigerator back. Or I'd leave it out and have the customer sign a damage waiver. I would not finish that repair with a plastic water line. We've seen, and maybe it's just here in Maryland, but we've seen those water lines crack. They get hairline cracks in them and they leak. And it's just from age. It's not from anything anybody did. And then obviously you have floor damage as a result, which you could get that from just pulling it in and out, not mention a water leak, food loss, and then cabinetry, countertop damage, pulling it in and out. You're exposed to all of that. So certainly you have a higher liability on a refrigerator than you do on a dryer. So if time only is your guide point for your price structure, you've got a problem out of the gate because you've got such greater liability in the refrigerator repairs than you do in dryers, and you didn't account for it in your pricing structure, which if you're doing a cost of doing business, most companies don't drill down into those nuances. And that's already done. It's the beauty. It's why we created the Blue Book in the very beginning, 37 years ago, when the book first came out in a very different form, admittedly, but that was the rationale. I always offered a flat rate. I called it then, but it was a job rate then. I just didn't know to call it a job rate. So if you see a 20-year-old book, it might say flat rate on the front because I didn't know to call it differently. So here's one of the problems, and now I'll get into some of the presentation, and I'll open you up to let you open it up to questions if you haven't already. But one of the biggest hangups that I've had is owners say to me, my staff, my customers, my whatever, fill in the blank, won't let me charge those prices. And that's just not true. So what has to happen first is ownership has to embrace the value of a job rate. You have to grasp the benefits that it offers to everyone. As I just communicated, it hits everybody. It hits the customer, it hits the technician, it hits the customer service rep, and it certainly hits management. It really does simplify life for everybody involved in the service experience, top to bottom. If you don't grasp the value, and I've got Columbine and Best, these are two companies that had me come out, so I must have pulled this slide because I put a whole bunch of slides together. Two companies in Colorado that I've done this presentation for, as well as some others. The owners grasped it. They had me come out and present this to their technicians and to their office staff so that they understood why they were switching over to job rates. The customer service rep's responsibility is to make sure they tell every customer about the pricing coming from the Major Appliance Service National Job Rate Price Guide, the Blue Book in the industry. And I'd said before, I know it's a lot. The owner operator, if you're a one-man operation, my encouragement to you is, and I've said this in every presentation, hire a stay-at-home mom to answer your phones and pay them something. They will like the extra income. It's personalized. People don't mind babies crying in the background and dogs barking. It's sort of fun, right? You don't have to appear like you're a big company if you're not. It's okay. But it does help you not be on the hook to talk to a customer when they want to talk for 7 minutes and you're in the middle of a job. If you're on the job, you should be about the job. And so if you answer the phone while you're there, you're actually taking away from the customer that you're in front of. And you should always be about the customer that you're in front of, which means you should not take the phone call. So when you don't take the phone call and that customer keeps calling around and they get a live body on the phone, you've just run the risk of having them go away. So all of your marketing efforts are in the wind. You've blown it because you didn't set the customer up to get somebody live that can answer their questions, schedule the call, or whatever. The other thing that I mentioned is just showing the customer this book is a very powerful tool. So I'm going to go through some specifics of what I would say is the presentation to the customer. So you can see the book. Now we make two versions of it. We make a pocket edition and a large edition. As my eyesight, you see I have glasses on. And yes, I have bifocals and I'm not ashamed. I don't care. And they're not graded where you can't not see the bifocals. I don't care. I can't see. I like the bifocals. The graded ones made me fall and I couldn't get used to it. So this book, the desktop version we call it, is got big print. I like that. And depending on your market, your customers may appreciate that as well. Most technicians prefer what we call the pocket edition because it actually literally fits in their back pocket. But here's the process. So you've gone into the customer's house. You've had the customer service rep set the call up. They've explained that you're using the National Job Rate Price Guide, the Blue Book in the industry. You've completed your diagnosis of the problem. You've confirmed where the part is. Is it on your truck? Where is it? Be prepared. Don't call that customer back to the product unless you have a full story to tell. obviously part of the GLEAPS program, if anyone sat in on that, you should always use the customer's name, which means you have to know the customer's name. And if you don't, figure that out at the door when you're knocking on the door to come in. Explain the failure, show them where the defective part is. You should have it apart, obviously. Hopefully you've not put the part on already, the new part. That's never good. This should all be before you've done anything in making the repair. Explain what you see as the value of the problem. If you think about it, you're the professional, you're the doctor, you're there to give it your stamp of approval or your suggestions, whatever you offer, it's taken as gold from a customer. That's what they're paying you for, is your expertise. It's what you offer. So I say show them, explain to them, you're the expert, provide the repair timeline. If you have to get a part, if you have it on the truck, awesome. If you focused on first call completes and you've ordered parts in advance, great. And then here's the beauty. So they've had this top of mind awareness in the customer service rep. They've been told that your company uses the original Blue Book, the National Job Rate Price Guide. Now, you're going to whip out the original Blue Book, the National Job Rate Price Guide, and you're going to show them in the book where the job is listed. You point to it and you hand them the book. I like handing the customers the book because it puts the eyes of the customer on the book. It's a professional presentation. It helps take some of the pressure off the technicians, particularly if they're uncomfortable, which, by the way, there's a great deal of discomfort in technicians understanding their own value and worth in offering a professional service. So my argument is, and I was just talking to an HVAC guy this morning in my office. He owns a large distributorship here in town, and he was talking about the quality of service technicians and how there are so few today that really can diagnose and make a repair, but they also don't understand their own value. So that's a problem in our industry. But I said to him, I personally think, and I think I can make a pretty compelling argument, that the appliance industry in general is way harder than the HVAC industry. So if someone is feeling bad about or feeling less than that they're offering a professional service, I would just invite you, electrician or HVAC or a plumber. They do not need to have near the knowledge that we have. And so I hope there's this baseline understanding about the value that we offer as professionals, knowing all this knowledge about the variety of products. 40 years ago when I broke in the business, more than 40 now, admittedly, there was 4 washers on the market, GE, Whirlpool, Frigidaire, and Maytag. And there was no Samsung, there was no LG, there was no Bosch in terms of washers, not that we saw. And, that's all we had. And there was no, I guess there was a Westinghouse front loader that was special to work on, and a Speed Queen, but they were very isolated. The big 4 were what we worked on. And now that's not the case. So I hope you've spent time drilling down into your staff's head. And if you're the staff, drilling down into your own head about the value of what you've got in your head and providing this level of service to be able to fix such a wide variety of product. Not normal at all. So, all right, so down the bottom of the list, you've showed them the job rate and you've explained to them all this stuff. You showed them, and now you're going to ask if the customer has any questions, and you're going to give a pregnant pause. Why? Because they may have a question that didn't come to their head. You don't want to be jamming something down anybody's throat. And when they finish asking the question, you've answered it, you can say, well, would you like me to make the repair? You actually should ask for the business. You've already told them whether you think it's of value or not. And I've had customers that have argued with us about, no, they want to repair it, even though we didn't think it was of value. So we may have to go back into explaining that we will make it, but they just need to know and understand and own the fact that, we're not so sure it has the value that they're placing on it. And they may have compelling reasons why. Maybe they're moving out in a month or whatever. doesn't matter. But asking for questions and then asking for the repair is a prime component in part of the presentation. So as you can see in the book, you see the cover of the book, and you see the guy showing the price of the, he's pointing to the price in the book with the customer attentively looking over his shoulder at the price. It's a big deal. It works. There's no doubt about it. It works. Just here's some, I'll just bring it all to a close and then I'll open it up to questions. It certainly has a professional appearance. I've talked about taking the pressure off of everyone. If you don't believe me that it reduces complaints, I don't know how to prove it to you other than that you can look. We have a lot of testimonials from people on our website. I've had many people come up to me when I've done these presentations at the ASTI and all the other places that I've done presentations, and they said, Dean, I didn't believe you, but you were right, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not blowing smoke. It's legitimate. It reduces complaints. I'm not kidding. Having the book do the talking for you and for your technician it's just easy. It makes it easy. Obviously, customers like it because you're, and they don't even know they like it, but you've invited them to not be a clock watcher, which drives you crazy. And then consistency. What do I mean by that? Well, if you know that if you have a whole bunch of a particular brand's products that you're fixing on a regular basis, like Whirlpool refrigerators and washers and dryers and dishwashers and ranges. And you know that the liability issues, the serviceability issues have been taken into account, there's a good chance that you're going to have a higher degree of profitability. In fact, I would argue with you, I couldn't imagine that there wouldn't be, because it creates consistency across those lines. And obviously it's way more than 5,000 now listed in the book. The electronic version has way more than that because it's every part imaginable that you can build a price off of. This version, as I said, is not customizable. So just to give you an example, on the book, so I'm looking at, let me look at a Whirlpool refrigerator since I've been, I'll look at a washer. Now I'm going to look at a Whirlpool washer just for simplicity's sake. We do have a bunch of brands in here. Sorry, I didn't have this open, but I like the direct dial. I mean, the direct drive, the motor coupler. So if you look in here, it says motor coupling in the book. It's actually alphabetically listed. It looks, and this is an older book. I haven't gotten Jack to update me on it. So, but it lists a price and it's a total price. And then it lists a labor code next to it. And at the top of the page, it lists the service charge. So you can see that customer's going to see the total price and then has a labor code and then a service charge at the top. So the price listed in the book is made up of 3 components. It's made up of the part, the labor, and the service charge. The part, when we've drawn these parts, we've tried to add, now we've taken a multiplier that we've used. It's listed in the front of the book. We've done our own averaging on what we think the average person pays for the part. We've done a part markup on that, and we've added a baseline of a little bit of tax to that to cover places that have a tax. It doesn't cover all the tax. Some places have 8 and 9% tax. Some people have 4. Some people have no sales tax. So it does cover a baseline of tax. The job labor code, it says code. If you go to the front of the book, there's actually a little menu item that lists what the labor codes actually are. And so you can see for yourself, if you're not sure, it actually lists labor codes. And so every job that has a price has a labor code. Every job that, whether it has CFP, if you remember me mentioning that before, where we feel like the parts pricing is volatile and we're not willing to put a part price in here. Maybe it's a board, it's primarily boards, but it says CFPP, but you still have the labor code, the service charge at the top and the labor code on the side that you can pull up, and then taking the part multiplier, get your part cost on it, you can calculate what the price would be. and a customer can follow along with you on that if you wanted to, where it's not listed in the book. So where you wouldn't be able to take the book, point to the price, and give it to the customer, it's not there. So, but that's how it's made up. Every brand in here, and it's cataloged by air conditioners, cooking, and a whole bunch of brands on cooking. So they're alphabetized at the top in a tab up here, and then you go to dishes, disposals, dryers, refrigerators, stack washers, and on down the line. We have boutique lines listed in here, the higher ends, the Subs, the Thermadors, the Vikings, the DCS, they're listed in here. As we have products that come up that are newer, like for instance, we just added Speed Queen dryers. The Speed Queen brand has been taking more front and center, particularly in the center part of the country. People are liking that brand more and more, so we did add that to the book. So you'll see that in newer versions as we've just done that. It's certainly on the electronic right away, and I'll let Jack talk more about that in the next segment, which starts at 2:30. So to not run on, I know I always run on, right? I know Jack and Sarah would shake their heads yes. What I would do is say to Jack and Sarah, are there any questions? Did I miss anything? Do you want me to repeat anything or go over anything? Can't hear you, Jack. I still can't hear you.
I think he's muted.
He is muted. I didn't mute him. So the electronic version will come on at 2:30. Does anybody have any questions? Sarah, did any questions pop up from anybody?
We had one, but Jack answered it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
We're good.
Does anybody else have any questions for me? In the very beginning, I had my email address up there. Feel free to email jack@servicecompaniesolutions.com or dlanders@landersappliance.com. For the paper version, you get the discount going through United Servicers. So it's automatic. It's go to the website and you'll see a button there. You can order it online. Jack will get it shipped out to you and you get the discount being a UASA member. And so the electronic version will come up at 2:30. So if you have questions for Jack or want to see about that, that product is customizable from beginning to end. It's actually what all my guys use now. We have iPads in all the homes. It does work on a device. It's harder to read on a small phone, but the bigger phones, it works great. So anyway, I thank you all for your time. If you have questions, feel free to send them to Sarah, me, or Jack. They'll end up getting to me. If you have questions for me, I may take a day or so to get back to you as I'm operating a company as well as doing all the other things that I do. So look forward to talking to you and seeing you at the next ASTI. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Dean. I think Jack is still muted. Okay. Well, thank you, Dean. Thank you, Jack. Jack, hopefully we'll get your audio figured out before the next one in about a half an hour. If anybody has any questions, email us, or you can log on to unitedservicers.com and order the Blue Book if you'd like. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.